I think if you click this video, then we probably share a common fascination for the story of Bob Lazar. Ever since I heard it for the first time, what must be now like 15 years ago, I was fascinated, I was drawn in, and I wanted to know whether the man speaks the truth. So I watched all the documentaries, I read books, so many articles, great interview with him on Joe Rogan. There's so much content out there that all seems to suggest that the man speaks the truth. There's a lot there that makes it believable, so many aspects. And what I'm not going to do in this video is I'm not going to go into all the basic knowledge around Bob Lazar, okay? I'm not going to cover his background, what he did exactly, the sports model, all that stuff. I'm going to assume that you know that already. If you don't know what I'm talking about or who Bob Lazar is, then please go and read up on it first. Watch documentaries, familiarize yourself with the story. Maybe just watch the Joe Rogan interview, right? It is quite compelling and paints a fairly complete picture of his story from his point of view. But what got me started on this journey of making this video is that I found this post about 3-4 weeks ago on Reddit that just is titled "Lazar has now started selling his printed UFO sketches for $89 a pop. Would say his argument of not profiting from his story isn't valid anymore." And indeed, we get a little image of him drawing an updated version of his sports model sketch and promoting it on Instagram. It doesn't say the price here, but I will just assume that the man speaks the truth. And someone is rightly saying, it's nice of him not to price it at his favorite number, 115. Then we're moving on to this incredibly well-researched second Reddit post by Jack Frost71, and I'm thankful that he put all this together. Some things I heard before, other things I hadn't heard before, so we're going to read through it. It's fairly long, and it's a lot of things that might make you skeptical about Bob. Don't think this is a hit piece. To be honest, I kind of want to believe him. I think his story is so consistent over the years, and it is quite credible that my emotions say that I want to believe this man. But then there are also holes in his story, and I think we have to look at those. You know, we can't close our eyes in front of them and say, hey, no, those don't exist. Let's just look at all the positives and the things that we believe. We have to be open, and we have to nearly expose ourselves to those facts as well. And again, this is a great piece by Jack Frost, and we're going to go through it, and hopefully we can all learn something about Bob Lazar's story that we didn't know about before. So he says, if you believe Bob, you believe someone who allegedly fled Los Alamos after owing hundreds of thousands of dollars to people, resulting in Bob finally declaring bankruptcy, which was finalized 1 year before his S4 story. Here is John Horn's account of the money Bob owed him and how he had to chase Bob for years. John was one of the lucky ones that got his money back, with a link to an interview with John Horns. I will link this post down in the description so you can go there, look at it yourself, read up on it yourself. All the references that he found, that he bases information on, are here as links. You can click them, read up on them, check these links out. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole interview. Here is a list of Bob's creditors from the bankruptcy case, including his parents. So we get a full list of his creditors, including Case Photo Corporation, $50,000 amount of loan. Payment date in 1986. Here's Lazar, his father, $15,000. Dates paid in 85 to 86. And even Los Alamos National Bank lists as $60,000 in 85, 86. So that doesn't look too good. On the other hand, at this point, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because we're all young. You know, in the early 80s, he was young as well. And we all mess up sometimes. You know, maybe he wanted to start a business or whatever. Borrowed all this money, couldn't pay it back, screwed up. Stuff happens, okay? This doesn't discredit him, really. Let's keep going. So Jack Frost says, if you believe Bob, you believe a guy who said he was a physicist at Los Alamos National Labs. However, people that knew Bob, like John Horn, said he was an electronics technician at Los Alamos National Labs. Bob also did an electronics course at Pierce College, for which Stanton Friedman found records of. Bob's 1980 marriage certificate lists him as being an electronic technician. In 1981, Bob was working at the Fairchild Syncom as an electronics technician. Bob admitted that in a Wired article. In 1982, he showed up at Los Alamos National Labs and told a reporter who wrote about his jet car that he was a physicist. In 1989, he used the Los Alamos National Labs phone directory to prove he worked there, in combination with the 1982 article, used it all as proof he was a physicist there. Problem is, the Los Alamos National Phone Directory lists him working for a company called Kirk Meyer. Kirk Meyer only hired tech-related roles like electronic technicians. They were formerly called Roll Tech. Bob, on Billy Goodman, back in 1989, said he started at Los Alamos National Lab as a technician. He also told Corbell that in 1982, while working at Los Alamos National Labs, he went out and installed a satellite dish there. This is the same year he told the Jetcar article journalist that he was a physicist there. Okay, so this is not great. Okay, this doesn't make him look particularly good. Like if he just goes up to a reporter and says, yeah, I'm a physicist there, and it's not really proven. I mean, the reporter probably wouldn't check that credential. The guy built a jet car, so if he says he's a physicist there, and maybe at this point it was just an attempt of him boosting his career, right? He saw maybe an opportunity, you tweak the story a little bit and maybe something comes out of it. But at this point, hearing stuff like this, if it's really true as it's written here, then it does indicate someone who is not objected to the idea of twisting the truth a little bit. Let me put it this way, but let's keep going. And again, everything I'm saying here, don't just take it from me. I'll link the Reddit post down in the description and you can check out all these links. You know, here is like a request from Kirk Meyer for his work records and a Wired article breaking down some of the things they spoke about above, the marriage certificate. There's a lot of research that has been done here that went into this post, so it just lends a little bit of credibility to it, and feel free to go and check all these links yourself. The Wired article is about the gun and fireworks show Bob ran in the desert called Desert Blast from 87 to 99. Here's a video of Desert Blast 12. Bob, the organizer, can be seen at Blah 50. Bob learned to make fireworks from an Italian family he met that made them through generations. His main business at United Nuclear is selling fireworks material, which he has been busted on several times, with a link to that as well. And it's true, if you go to United Nuclear, which is Bob's website, it not only looks like it's coming out of the 80s, I think it probably does. I think it is basically a shop and you can buy chemicals and metals, but I am not sure I would purchase anything from a shop that looks like this, to be very honest with you. And I think to an extent this just looks like he's basically trying to create a facade of him being scientific. I don't doubt that he's selling all these things and that he knows what they are. So I don't know if he's mostly selling firework components or materials that are used for fireworks, because I don't know much about that. But here's a link that links to apparently a civil lawsuit against United Nuclear. I'm not going to go into those details, but it just seems like it's a reference to him being busted for these kinds of materials. Then, number 3, a self-confessed brothel owner. Okay, we know this, right? This is fairly common knowledge. Who then got caught years later running a second illegal brothel, just months after claiming to be at S4. He claimed he only installed a computer system there despite pleading guilty. But the police affidavit shows they found the brothel apartment lease agreement with Bob's name on it. Also, the hooker said Bob had interviewed them. He also installed surveillance cams in the trick rooms. See here. Even George Knapp admitted Bob was a rebel who was into guns and hookers. Not going to click that YouTube link, but apparently here we get the affidavit, which is signed by Bob Lazar. So that's not looking good. I mean, we all knew that there was some... And I find it interesting as well that there are these stories kind of hovering in the background of him like owning brothels and stuff, but it's never really explained as clear as it is explained here. Someone would really need to dive deep into it and do the research in order to hear the story as clear as it is explained here, so I quite appreciate that. Again, what's his name? Jack Frost 71 did all the work. My God, man, this guy. Please follow him on Reddit. If you believe Bob, you believe a guy who tells a crowd in Rachel that in 1993 that he had Professor Duxlers and Hosefield at MIT and Caltech. Neither were found to have taught at MIT and Caltech. Friedman found them to be Bob's high school and Pierce College teachers, for which there is record of Bob attending. MIT and Caltech also told Friedman that Bob had not attended either school, with a reference link to him saying it, and all the reference links of all the claims. Like, that's also not good. Okay, this is not good. You can't claim that your high school teachers were the ones that taught you at Caltech and MIT. I mean, especially if you tell a story of the caliber that you do, you have to know that people are going to research this stuff. And if that comes out, obviously it will come out, then that doesn't look good, okay? So it's another piece of the puzzle that just doesn't really add up. If you believe Bob, you believe a guy who copied the Demon Core story, including the reactor design. The Demon Core story is a true story about a scientist who died opening a reactor. Bob had claimed that he replaced a scientist at S4 who died trying to open the alien reactor. And then they're giving these two images for reference, showing a reactor on top and Bob's model of a reactor underneath, and they're saying that he basically... I don't know, man. Like, even he nicked that design. Maybe that's just how these reactors look. I don't know anything about physics. Maybe someone down in the comments can correct me, and then I can kind of put that comment on top or something. But I don't know how legit this particular claim is that he copied the whole story, because just maybe it really happened, you know, that someone at S4 opened the reactor and died, and maybe it also happened in this true story about this other scientist who opened the reactor and died. I mean, it's not impossible that stuff like this happens twice, especially if you're trying to back engineer like an alien engine. I mean, at some point someone's gonna cut it open while it works. I don't know. It's just something worth trying, I guess. So they continue and say Bob Lazar copied the Element 115 story from a Scientific American article that just came out 2 weeks prior. He copied Billy Meier's saucers. That's not wrong. If we look at the designs of Billy Meier's flying saucers that he allegedly photographed, it's a great story. We can see similarities between some of those designs and Bob Lazar's sports model, as he calls it. Reticuli, alien origin from Betty and Barney. Okay. And finally, the story of the government having acquired a number of UFOs, one of which they could fly. From John Lear, who told that story to Knapp 2 years before Bob came out with his S4 story. See Lear telling Knapp's story in 1987 for yourself. So basically they're saying that John Lear already years before Bob came out with his story spoke about the government having recovered UFOs, being able to fly at least one of them. So again, it could be that he kind of inspired his story from them, because we know that he knew John Lear. Both Bob and Gene Huff met Lear before his S4 story, and they obtained Lear's UFO files, including the Billy Meier tapes. Here's a cut clip of Lear saying he showed Lazar the Meier tapes, and Bob saying the UFO was just like the Meier ones. Meier later was busted completely as a fraud when pics he said were of an alien woman turned out to be a screen grab from the Dean Martin TV special. When Bob gave his first interview in silhouette under the alias Dennis, that was filmed in a news van parked in John Lear's driveway, with a link of him saying that it was filmed in his driveway. Number 6. If you believe Bob, you believe a guy that forged a W-2. A W-2 is apparently some form of employment, so you would have like an employment slip from the company. The W-2 Bob showed had an employer on it that did not exist. It noted the Department of Naval Intelligence rather than the Office of Naval Intelligence. The W-2 was also typed and not printed, a huge red flag. It also had a bogus MAJ-OMB number typed on it, when a legitimate OMB number was already there and printed. So 2 of those numbers, and you should have only 1 per form. The 15450008 number is correct and designates it as a W-2 form. This can be verified in an OMB database search. Nothing comes up for the MAJ number. And I know the conspiracy theorists are like, yeah, of course nothing comes up. MAJ, Majestic, that wouldn't be in the database. It's secret, bro. It's all undercover and you will never find out what's going on. And that might be the case, but at the moment, we don't know. We simply don't know. And he might as well have made it up. I mean, it really looks like he picked a lot of inspiration from different places, and all that might be coincidence, sure. Benefit of the doubt to an extent, but it's not far-fetched that he read about Majestic somewhere, the Majestic 12 or whatever, and just kind of put that in his narrative as well, because it kind of fit. I don't know. We all don't know, and that's what we have to realize here. That's why we're doing this exercise. Number 7, if you believe Bob, you believe a guy who took Bigelow night UFO spotting in 1990 at the same spot he took the others previously. Bigelow had a rustle and spotted Lazar letting loose a helium-filled mylar balloon towards Papoose. Biggs told Rogan this, with a link to a YouTube video. Bigelow also set up a company for Lazar to do research. Bigelow fired Lazar when he found Lazar was just using the lab to store furniture. Bigelow also said Lazar made claims about a material that didn't check out. Another link, I think all that's in that Joe Rogan interview with this Bigelow guy. I watched that. This does ring some bells, but I think I watched that quite a while ago, so I'm not entirely up to speed with this story. Of course, unbelievably, Bigelow still believed Lazar after all that. Interestingly, Bob had been employed to work for Bigelow's lab while at the same time he was running a brothel for which he was arrested for. The dates he was running the brothel according to the pandering court docs and when he was meant to be at Bigelow's lab line up. See point 5 above. No wonder he had no time for the lab. He was running a brothel. He had to interview those women. Okay, you have to interview hookers all day long. Okay, I don't have time for a lab. My brothel doesn't fill itself. Okay. Can you imagine Bob Lazar interviewing a prostitute? I can't even imagine that. That's like the weirdest thought for me. Also noteworthy is that George Knapp never mentioned during that interview that he worked for Bigelow for several years in the late 90s to early 2000s for NIDS. By the way, Janet's flights came into Area 51 over Papoose twice a night. Their landing lights shone at the Rachel area. Area 51 also conducted night tests for their aircraft, etc. nightly. They even let flare loose under balloons for reason unknown. Glenn Campbell wrote a 115-page Area 51 viewer's guide about all this, blah, blah, blah. Links. Here Lazar says some of this himself. Basically, there were lights in the sky over those ranges for one reason or another every night. Number 8. If you believe Bob, you believe a guy who made money from his story by selling movie rights to his story to Gruber, Peters, and then New Line Cinema. Making the government Bible videotape with his friend Gene Huff, which they advertised in newspapers and magazines, sold for $30 a pop. Got a royalty deal from testors who made a model of his saucers which sold for $25. Made money from countless TV appearances and talks back in the day. Made money from his autobiographical book called Dreamland. Sold a ton of merch since day one, including Element 115 mugs, t-shirts, etc. He started his own UFO radio show called UFO Line, and we've seen in the beginning he's now also selling his sketches for $89 a pop. So I guess the argument of him saying, I'm not profiting of this in any way, really is invalid. Okay, that is not a valid argument anymore. If you believe Bob, you believe a guy that says he flew into Area 51 and even ate in the canteen once. Frühauf, I don't know who that is, said someone told him recently that they saw Lazar there. But according to the president of the Area 51 veterans, There's a president of the Area 51 veterans? Is that how they call themselves? I have to Google this, to be honest. The Area 51 veterans. Well, it looks like I can't find anything. But I guess I'm searching for Area 51 related content. So obviously it's all secret. It's all covered in a thick layer of mist that we just can't see through it. It's impossible. So we'll just trust this guy that the Area 51 veterans are a thing. And those said T.D. Barnes, he is one of these veterans, he had asked the security guards and others who worked there at the time, and they all said Bob was never there, again with a link to a YouTube video. Chris Mellon had quoted Eric Davis recently, although he got one detail wrong. Eric said Bob was off-site checking radiation badges and not at Area 51. Here's an interview with Fred Dunham, who worked as a security guard at Area 51 during Bob's supposed time. Bob had claimed he flew there before taking a bus to S4 to Papoose. Fred said Bob was not at Area 51. He had checked the manifest. Fred had also been to Papoose, no secret base there. And the only road to Papoose was a rough and guts dirt road that a bus could not even get down. See the Fred Dunham interview here. Number 10. If you believe Bob, you believe a guy who said that he used a mysterious hand bone scanner. You remember this? That was in the Jeremy Corbell documentary where he presented him with this dubious hand scanner, it was really weird. And generally, I hate Jeremy Corbell. Sorry, I have to put this in here. This guy's just destroying everything that's left of like the UFO research community because he's so not credible. It feels like watching a child trying to play UFO researcher. It's really weird. I hate the guy. You can feel whatever you want about him, but I think he's literally doing harm to the UFO field as a research subject, so to say. I appreciate some of the footage that he brought us. I've just put it out there, but he's a weird guy and he probably also didn't really add to the overall credibility of Bob Lazar. Even he tried to, ironically. So not only was the Identimat 2000, what a cool name for a hand scanner, in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which came out in 1977, a few years before Bob claimed to be recruited. It was also in a ton of newspaper and magazine articles going back to 1969. It was used in all kinds of places, including universities. Okay, so it's really not that secret. But I guess it shows that it's a real hand scanner, and a lot of us never saw it before. And it seemed like in that Corbell documentary, when he showed it to Bob for the first time, he hadn't seen it in a long time. I don't know. I mean, is it credible or is he just acting it out? I don't know. But I guess it's a real hand scanner, and I guess it was used to an extent during that time. I'm not sure that's an argument against him. It was also rumored that Bob's friend Jim Tagliani had worked at the Tonopah test range, where they did use the Identimat 2000. The Tonopah test range also had Site 4, which was a radar facility they used to test radar signatures of craft being tested there and at Area 51. Did Bob get both bone scanner and S4 idea from Jim Tagliani? God, this guy did some serious research. I mean, this stuff is convincing. You see, he worked at this other facility, and there they had that scanner, and they had a Site 4 that was like a radar facility. It just seems like all the stuff that he showed above as well is just little puzzle pieces that all puzzle together Bob's story, and it seems like he may have literally taken all that inspiration from all the things that he saw, and he's a bright guy, so he put it together to a very compelling story. I don't know, man. I'm not really casting a judgment here. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just reading this out to you. Number 11. We're not done. If you believe Bob, you believe a guy who George Knapp claimed passed a number of polygraph tests. The truth is, Bob did 2 polygraph exams. The first one was done by a polygrapher called Ron Slay. The first set of questions he asked Bob failed. Supposedly, Bob passed the next set of questions. Ron then ruled the polygraph test inconclusive. The second polygraph test was done by Terry Tavernetti a month later. He asked Bob 4 sets of questions. Bob failed the first set of questions. According to Terry, Bob seemed to pass the next 3 set of questions. He was going to say Bob passed, but instead decided to consult with 2 other polygrapher colleagues. One agreed with Terry, and the other one, Bob, was retelling a story he learned by heart. So at the time, Terry decided to not give a statement of truthfulness. So the truth is, both of his polygraph tests were kind of inconclusive. From the point of view of a professional polygrapher, I even consulted another colleague, but it's not that he passed a polygraph test with flying colors. Okay, that's not the case. There were some doubts in those tests. Number 12. Additional bits. Knapp claims Bob had a piece of element 115 in front of a homemade particle accelerator. Just reading that, I mean, the way it's written, it's, it just sounds ludicrous. He was going to flip the switch if the government came for him, and the explosion would have left a great big hole in Vegas. Did Knapp report it to the police? How about even a news story about it on KLAS? Knapp had claimed for many years that he knew where some element 115 is buried. And as of a few years ago, so had Corbell. Anything Jeremy Corbell claims, I just automatically don't believe it. I'm naturally in doubt with this guy. Yet despite screaming for disclosure, they won't dig up some and send a grain to be analyzed to help all humankind, as Bob hasn't either. Knapp claims he saw a video of an experiment where some light was shone over some element 115 and the light bent. Amazing. But unfortunately, Corbell says when he looked for the tape, Bob had taped over it with an episode of The Golden Girls. Knapp also said he had a copy of the tape, but he lost it. Oh no. Bob claimed he had some element 15 for 30 years. So why doesn't he repeat the experiment, right? If he knows where it is, just do it again, film it. Bending light, oh my god, it's going to blow up on YouTube. Millions of people are going to watch it. No, we're not doing it, because if the government knows he has the element 115, they're going to come after him. Someone has a story ready why he's not doing it. Bob claims 22 people in all were at S4 researching all aspects of the 9 saucers. Only 2, Barry, full-time, and Bob, part-time, were assigned to reverse engineer the gravity drives. This would have been the greatest discovery of all time, yet despite the government putting 130,000 people on the A-bomb, they decided to put one guy named Barry and a part-timer named Bob on reverse engineering the saucer's gravity drives. As Stanton Friedman said in regards to this, the government would have put more people on developing a new mousetrap. Rest in peace, Stan Friedman. I think he's got a point there. Good man. And this concludes this list of evidence. I think there's a lot of stuff there that just does not look good. I understand that this is a video that mainly highlights the negatives, the doubts, the questions, the skepticism. But to be honest, there are a million videos out there who only highlight all the things that people want to believe. And I thought it's worth putting a video out there that highlights the other side of the coin. And here we are. And I think a lot of this, to be honest, man, here's my opinion. Here's my opinion on the whole subject of UFOs, that it is 99% a money-making machine. When I read these stories of like Knapp and Bob, where they claim all these really dubious things of like power generators running on element 115 in someone's basement, and it's dodgy, right? And the UFO subject can't shake off this kind of pulpy, dodgy dress that it's wearing. And it will always be that, because the whole field of UFOs is full with scam artists, with fake stories, with fake footage, with CGI created UFOs. And the main thing that it is a money-making machine for a lot of people. I can't be conclusive about Bob Lazar here in this video, and I'm not going to say, whether he's saying the truth or not, but I can see how many people are profiting off this. And a lot of people have made good money and will keep making good money off stories like that, because it gets people excited, it gets people asking questions, and people just love these kind of stories, so why not feed them to them? So I think a healthy skepticism is required when looking at stories like Bob Lazar's. And I think that's what we did in this video, but please leave your thoughts about this down in the comment section below. I'm really curious to hear what you think. Do you believe his story after hearing all this? Do you think the guy who wrote this just wants to discredit him? Is it a CIA agent? Or has this maybe even convinced you? And you think, yeah, maybe it's all kind of made up and he just is a good storyteller, I guess, very consistent over the years. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Smash like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel. The button is down there. I'd appreciate to see you on another video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to also hit the bell so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye.